I felt weak at halftime. I felt like something I love was crumbling in my fingers, totally powerless to stop it. It was just, I found myself Googling, how much do West Ham tramp stamps cost? If that's what it takes, I would have got one. If West Ham had done the job for us, I would have got myself a West Ham just some irons.
Bubbles.
Some irons. Yeah,
Bubbles.
irons and bubbles.
From the Men in Blazers studios in the crap part of Bedford and from the crap part of the South Fork of Long Island, it's the Men in Blazers video podcast presented by the GFOPs at Camarena, the Most Awarded Tequila.
Do we still get to sign Jude Bellingham now? Oh, we stayed up, Davo.
Define still. I tell you, Roger, I lived and died every moment of this game with you, but of course my volume only set to 3 or 4. Yours
never
set
in
to maybe
doubt.
17. Yeah, I doubt that was true.
Never in doubt. Never in doubt. I never doubted. Oh, boys, I never called Dwight McNeil, Shite McNeil all season.
Never happened.
Everyone who's listened to this podcast throughout this campaign knows that. I
Yeah.
did actually get a logo done up for the Men in Blazers Media Network, the Championship podcast, which was going to become our marquee one. We'll save that one for next season. But I have lived, Davo, every emotion. I've stared into the abyss. By the way, in just the last 10 minutes of extra time, I went through denial, anger, bargaining, depression for a long time in those 10 minutes, and then acceptance. I went through every one of the stages of grief. Warning, I may tear up a bit. I'm feeling a lot of emotions, a lot of life, a lot of death. I almost, Davo, watched the last ever Premier League game Everton will play in my lifetime. We are still the Roman Roy. We are still the Twitter spaces of football, but we live.
It's so interesting. Before we podded, Roger, you said to me that you hear from so many people.
Everybody.
These like people in your life, people from
Everybody.
all different fields. It's interesting. I can only imagine, because I've heard from a dozen people congratulating me on Everton staying up. Is that I've got this little group of people. I don't have the heart to tell them that I'm not the Men in Blazers Twitter or the Men in Blazers Instagram, and it's not me. I'm not the Everton fan. And I suppose I don't go out there a lot and talk about Chelsea
look
now.
the same.
So
All the balls,
I know a lot of people are
look
very
the same.
confused about
All
it.
to the unballed, to the head, all balls look the same, and it's confusing.
Yeah, most people think I'm Peter Drury.
When Everton come 17th in the Premier League, just everybody that
Again?
I've ever met, double. We've done the double. We've done the double.
That's 34.
We've done the double.
Well, yeah.
I mean, God. I mean, by the way, the reality is, please God, we'll do the treble. I mean, that honestly is so in doubt.
You would bite my arm off for 17th
Right
place
now,
next season.
right now, if you said to me, Rog, next season, let's not live this foolish march of folly. I'll give you 17th right now. I'll be like, Daddy, where do I sign? What documents do I need to do? What do I need to put? Do you need my house to sign up against this? I'll do whatever it takes, because this is an insanity. I 70th consecutive season in the top flight secured, not nothing. A huge part of my identity. There's been a lot of identity confusion this week, not going to lie. I hate relegation Sunday. I hate it. That day that Premier League football co-copulates with the Sci-Fi Channel rarely ends well. I talked on Friday about how GFOP John Shepherd, a Leeds fan, God, I feel for you today, John Shepherd, from Lexington, Kentucky, sent me a raven telling me how he was going to approach this weekend. It was like the wisdom of Band of Brothers strikes again. It was channeling the spirit of Spears to Blythe. The only way to survive is to accept the fact that you're already dead. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can function. That's how I felt since really all week, Dave. That's honestly how I felt. I feel like I am already dead.
Hats off to NBC, by the way, Rog, for the splendid piece of branding to call this Championship Sunday, because Relegation Sunday doesn't have the same ring to it. But to brand it Championship Sunday, which is the league that you will go into if you're relegated, is entirely brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, Americans would not tune in to see two teams given a swift kick in the down belows and get thrown through the moon door. But Championship Sunday, that's where you're headed, sir, to the championship. It's like kids who do not get into the university of choice immediately, but they're offered a deferred place. A lot of the universities have come up with a name for it. You get offered, sent a letter, and it comes and goes, congratulations, you're a spring scholar. And you're like, yes,
Oh.
what's a spring scholar? Well, you didn't get in. We got to wait till we got, okay, spring scholar. That's what it is. Championship Sunday. Woohoo. Where are you going? To the good place. I do want to preface this by saying, before I get into it, we're going to live a lot of life today. Honestly, a lot of death. I feel like I'm back from the dead. I feel like I saw a white light. I did walk towards it. I want to be completely clear. I looked into the abyss. I jumped.
You charged onto the field of the end of life at halftime.
Yes, the abyss spat me out, David. Yeah. The abyss said, we don't want you and your dirty...
The police sent you back.
Yes, the abyss rejected me, denied by the abyss. I tried to embrace the abyss. I tried to embrace the white light, but no, somehow I got chewed up, spat out, and here I am again to do it. I want to acknowledge... And I have to do this in the absurd list of side effects that have to be legally read out in a very fast voice at the end of every prescription drug commercial. We know, don't we, Davo, that football is just the most important, least important thing, right?
Yeah, none of this matters.
None of it. Prefacing it, there are terrible things we know that are going on in this dark world. Football is not one of them. Relegation is not war. Relegation is not the destruction of democracy. None of that. It just feels like it is. It tricks us. It does. It does trick us. So I do want to put all of what follows in context before we dive into this day of days, the darkest day, because I have not slept in about 6 days. I've taken this quite hard for reasons we'll discuss maybe, but I've been up at night reading a lot about death. And then last night, I read a book about the Battle of Cannae in the Second Punic War, which was Hannibal marching on Rome. And of the 86,400 Romans who fought in that battle, only 770 are estimated to have made it out alive. It's meant to be one of the bloodiest slaughters in humanity in battle. Today, Leicester fans, Leeds fans, Everton fans, I think we all know how, or I imagine we know how that probably felt to be on the Roman side of the Second Punic War.
To put it into perspective.
Yes! Are you ready to dive in, David?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. But before we get to that football, Roger, a quick word from Men in Blazers World Headquarters. Where hasn't been a lot of work going on at Men in Blazers World Headquarters behind the scenes, but a lot on the mic, a lot on camera. We're going to make this very quick so as not to delay the real stuff, Rog, the proceedings. Our American Football Awards, presented by Bud Light Special, is now live on Peacock TV, the season 9 finale of our television show.
Decore won.
Check it out there now. We want everything. It will also be available in pod form tomorrow. You're back Tuesday with a special Europa League final preview of European Nights with Rory Smith, presented by Paramount Plus. But let's get to it. Start this thing off with a toast, Rogelio.
Oh, I want to raise this first Bud Light of the day. It's actually my 23rd. To Luton Town and all Hatters around the world who have lived one of the most remarkable rises in English football history. They beat Coventry yesterday at Wembley on penalties in the Championship playoff. Two magnificent teams experiencing all of the emotions because it was only 5 years since they were lining up against each other in League Two. Wrexham fans, sit up, take note. Luton are now Premier League. Luton, Davo. Luton, 9 years from the very bottom, playing against the likes of Alfreton Town and Hyde United. No club has had such an insane rise from top to bottom and back again to the very elite. The whole squad cost just $6.5 million. Tiny, ramshackle, charming stadium. Kenilworth Road, capacity 10,000. They'll welcome the nation-state Goliaths like Manchester City and Newcastle next season. And Luton have suffered. They've experienced a fall into non-league, 40-point deductions for financial mismanagement, 5 years toiling in the Conference League, bankruptcy. Being a Luton fan has for so long meant turmoil and pain, and now they rightly gain their reward, their celebration. I went to New Haven last night to eat pizza. Sally's, I ran into a Luton Town fan. I think it was at Frank Pepe's I ran into him, and he said, I can't wait to play Everton, Rog. David, we now get to lose twice to Luton Town next season. Luton, you'll have to find the other 34 points you need to survive elsewhere, but I digress. What Luton have experienced, ultimately all that's good about football fandom and life. Football is amazing, no matter how much they try and ruin it, David. David, when you think of Luton, can you describe Luton to the non-Luton curious?
Yeah, I wonder what the US equivalent of Luton is. I mean, I suppose it's sort of is it Newark? Not really. It's not that important, but it's just north of London. I'd say about an hour north of London.
30 miles.
Yeah, north of North London.
But really, it's like 30 years away from London. It's like its own ecosystem.
Yeah, it's been sort of a massively rebuilt town. It was, as you said, it's the Hatters. It was the centre of the British millinery industry. But there isn't so much hat wearing goes on anymore. It's fallen on harder times. Luton Airport. A lot of people fly off their holidays in Luton Airport. Going to Luton Airport. Yeah, I said Luton Airport. Luton Airport is a big deal. Tiny stadium. They used to play on a synthetic pitch in the 90s. They're the first English team to play on a synthetic pitch in the 70s and 80s. I remember that, Rog. That was a big thing. They were the first players to not play on mud in the English leagues. That was an incredible thing about Luton. Great film, Blinded by the Light, Rog, a British independent movie made a few years ago about a young Pakistani kid in Luton who becomes obsessed with Bruce Springsteen. That's a good way to sort of get a feel for Luton if you want to get a feel for that town. That was set in the 1980s. It's great. But yeah,
get to a game. That is the best way. Americans get to a game.
It's going to be a tough ticket.
It is going to be a tough ticket. I mean, we've all seen on Instagram the away end, which is squeezed in between two terrace houses. It's just going to be, there's just the smell of police horse turd and just cigarettes and spilt beer and body odour is just going to waft over the Premier League in the most wondrous way. And I cannot wait now. Cannot wait to go and watch a game at Luton Town.
I'm immediately searching Luton direct flights to the USA. I do think you can fly direct Luton to Washington, D.C. and Luton to New York. That's suddenly those prices are going to go up. Okay, Rog, to the football. We're going to start with the relegation battle, the Championship Sunday battle.
Where have all the good men gone and where have all the gods?
We should go back. We came into the day, 3 teams vying for one safety spot. Those teams, of course, your beloved Everton Football Club, Leicester, champions of just a few years ago, and Leeds United. Remember when we used to call them Major League Soccer?
How many years ago was that?
Major League Soccer. That was like 10, 11 years.
How many years ago was that?
Yeah. All Everton needed to do today was to win to be safe. It's simple. All they needed to do.
Oh, my God.
And they saw off Bournemouth at home 1-0 behind a Dookie wonder strike to render Leicester's 2-1 win against West Ham unnecessary, superfluous. Leeds got bludgeoned 4-1 by Harry Kane and Spurs, so they were also down. And that's how it ends, Rog. Everton survive. Leicester and Leeds go down. Let's go back to the beginning of today and relive it all, moment by excruciating moment. I could see the stress written all over your face, by the way.
Just hearing you say that, I got nervous again. And then I feel sick. And then I'm shattered. By the end of listening to what you've just described, essentially my day, my week, my month, my season, I am so very tired, David. That is my dominant emotion. Joy, less. Relief, massive. I'm exhausted. I'm shattered. This was the last dance, Dave. I thought we were meant to win a three-peat at the end of the last dance. By the way, can I just say to everyone that's texted me over the past week and said, win and you stay up. If you can't beat Bournemouth, you don't deserve to stay up. I just want to humanly acknowledge it doesn't help. But a season of folly comes to an end. One in which everything that could have gone wrong felt like it did. Much wronger, actually, than we ever imagined. This felt more like a day of reckoning. So numbing because it was caused by our own hand, our own owner, the own board, Farhad Mashiri, reputed billionaire. We've lived an erratic.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, really. David, can I ask you this? You understand rich people. To be a billionaire, do you actually have to have money?
Yeah, you do. You have to actually have money rather than be supported by an oligarch.
Or to get newspapers to put in a billionaire, Farhad Mashiri. If they just say you are, does that make you one?
Yeah,
just checking.
No, it does not. Remember that great scene? What was their show? Silicon Valley, when the guy's net worth goes down below $1 billion, and he does the whole thing that he went from having a car though where the doors go up like that to suddenly he just had a car with like regular things. He wants that money where the doors go up, not one with the regular money. I doubt Farhad drives one with the doors go up.
He did. Maybe he did, but not anymore. Not anymore. He's in the Subaru territory like the rest of us peasants because. It's just erratic, unstrategic, ill-informed decisions. And today felt like we were going to get what we deserve for living out this madness. I got out of bed, because I haven't slept. I've not slept at all week. The relegation experience, I just want to be clear to those. Have you ever experienced relegation in your formative? I mean, Chelsea were down when you were a kid.
Chelsea were down a lot. Chelsea were in Division 2 a lot. All the time.
Todd Burley wants to bring back those glory days.
Yeah.
He's like, that's our tradition.
Well, he's doing a very good job of that.
But
why are we not involved in Championship Sunday?
The impotence of fandom is just, you never feel it more than when something you truly love and cherish, that you feel emotions to, that you connect to other people, to the city you love, to your own formative memories, to your family. And this season's been so numbing, watching everything on repeat. The thing I love, making the exact same mistakes. Honestly, before the game, David, this may sound like we survived a near-death experience last year, and here we are again. I honestly felt like I was about to walk the Green Mile before kickoff.
Yeah. I mean, this is the brutal thing about the Premier League. And every year, the teams who are down there think, oh, we just handled everything badly. I'm not saying that Everton...
I did a live show about this on stage.
Badly.
I did a show where I was like, hey, we'll never do this again, will we, Frank? And Frank Lampard told me, no, we won't. And then we went.
The problem is that 20% of the teams in the Premier League end up on Championship Sunday today. And frankly, over the last few weeks, there have been several other teams who've been down there. It's every season, multiple teams go through this. It's just this is the nature of the Premier League. Somebody has to finish in the bottom quarter of the table and go through hell in the last few weeks of the season.
Hell it is. And the worst of the agony is, I was like, I did it to my kids too. I did this to my kids. I made them feel this Green Mile feeling. I've willed them to it. I should have seen the signs, the danger. Should have steered them away.
All you win today is the chance to go through that again next year.
That's why I shouted at full time. I was like, hey, we got 365 days till we meet here again, Death. We play chess again. Yes. I mean, earliest when I got up, and I'm reading a lot about the Polish movie director Krzysztof Kieślowski, the gent who did that great colour trilogy, red, white, and blue. And he said something I really relate to. He said his greatest strength in life, his one great characteristic, was that he was a pessimist. He said, I always imagine the worst. He said his beautiful statement was, to me, the future is a black hole. And when I read that, I was like, yes, because...
but you don't need that kind of inspiration. You're already there. That's just affirmation for you, Rog.
Putting words to feelings articulately is a great life skill, and that's why he made films and I did not. But I spoke to a lot of blues. I did Toffee TV, great guys, but they were like so up, and they were like, we got this, Rog, we got this. And I tried really hard to make believe with them and imagine us actually winning. Davo, I haven't thought Everton were going to win a game confidently in bloody years. We didn't have fullbacks. We didn't have DCL. I couldn't comprehend how we could win this game. No DCL. Can I say about DCL, a gent who's played football for us very handsomely, but with an enormous fragile sticker on his buttocks every time he runs around the park. I tried to put a list of things that are less fragile than DCL. I believe bubbles, clouds, and spiders' webs are less fragile than DCL, Dave. No one's going to buy him, are they?
I don't think he's got a lot of value. With the amount that players make these days, and the wages that they expect. I mean, constantly you hear is like, oh, let him go to that club, let him go to that club. It usually will take a trade. It will take, DCL taking way less money. Modern footballers don't tend to want to take less money, weirdly, to go
rational
and play
human
somewhere
beings.
Else. They just don't want to do it.
Luton, if you're listening, we will swap you DCL for some training bibs and some mouthwash for our training ground. But he's very good. No Neil Maupay in the starting lineup. Thank you, God. Thank you, Sean Dyche. Neil Maupay is French for human self-soiling. We went 3 at the back. Beautiful Connor Cody back for the first time since February. Yerald Mina, his last dance. What a hero. Wing backs. I say there was huge relief and surprise that Tottenham and West Ham were playing strong lineups. But man, Tottenham at Ellen Road, that bear pit, I was like, talk about a team most likely to just Miami heat it in the crucible. And Leicester, I always felt were going to win. James Maddison, Harvey Barnes, to me, too skilled to be in this hot mess. And I was caught at kickoff between fear and adrenaline. and profound sickness, like real nausea, car sickness, huge sadness mostly for the Everton fans who truly believe that they truly believe and who travel with this club everywhere. You know, the smoke, the passion, the singing, and it made me tear up before kickoff, looking at them outside the ground, knowing how much it would hurt them if we all went bollocks up as it still may do. I found the scenes running up to kickoff so unbelievably emotional, Davo. Not just because we're all staring at the abyss, just the blue delirium, the big tifo, fight for us. It's naivete, just the fear. I mean, when you look at us, do you just think we're insane? Because I was just like, can a man still be brave if he's afraid? That's the only time a man can be brave. But you probably thought we were bonkers, right?
Well, no, I do think you're a little bit insane, but there is a reason for this to be so anxiety laden, and for you and all fellow fans of Everton to be so fear ridden and gripped by fear. Is that going down for Everton isn't just about going down. It's about going down and potentially never coming back up and going further down and further down, because Everton, for a series of reasons we've discussed a lot in this pod, but if you're just joining us today for the
welcome
for
friend,
one of the first time, welcome friend, it's that Everton have hanging over their head terrible debts, a financial fair play investigation, an owner who probably doesn't have a car that goes like that, probably has a car with just regular doors, maybe wind-up windows still, maybe not even a car, and a series of players who, bless their hearts, bless their little cotton socks, bless their energy, but player for player, you look down that Everton squad, there's not a lot there. Not a lot. There's some very good pieces, but there's not a lot there.
We had two goalkeepers on the bench. We had two in a must-win game. We had two goalkeepers.
And you almost needed one of them, but it's not a lot there. And it's a club with a new stadium, which they've already committed to going to this new stadium. So that's another huge anvil around their neck. And having spoken to some people this week who've been sort of involved in negotiations to potentially, take over your club or be involved in the sale of your club, it's a very, very tough prospect to own Everton, because it's daunting. By the way, even if they stay up, which they have, it's a daunting ownership problem to go into that club. If
truly awful.
Everton had have gone down, this wasn't just about getting relegated to the Championship. This was potential death spiral stuff.
It is truly awful, the Everton ownership. No, I think it's actually quite... I mean, the reality is, when Jay-Z talks about 99 problems, I would bite your arm off, Mr. Jay-Z, just to have 99 problems. Really, really, really. I mean, but this was a profound... We had to climb an Everest today. This is why I'm so emotionally fatigued. And we can talk about the bigger stuff, because we climbed Everest today, but there's mountains that laugh at Everest that are now ahead of us. We'll get there. I mean, can I say Bournemouth? We were told that Bournemouth were on the beach, mission accomplished, staying up. Everton had lost 3 games on the spin. They'd only scored once, more than once at Goodison Park, once this season. I mean, I spoke to a gent who is connected to Las Vegas Golden Knights, and he told me midweek, he goes, don't worry. Our players have just had the end of season party midweek. They are still so hungover. Believe me, they're on the lash. I couldn't believe it, how Bournemouth came to play. I mean, from the off, just knocking the ball around calmly, carefully. Came to wind us up. Came to time waste from the beginning. Always wind us up. Delight in our misery, like kids just tearing away the wings of insects. Subplot, 2 minutes in. Newsbreaker Harry Kane scoring that early, beautiful Harry Kane goal. That man, a Son assist, Harry Kane goal. One more time, we're feeling for those two. Old time's sake. 29th goal of the season. He'd later get his 30th. David, that man gets better and better as Tottenham get worse and worse. I feel like we talked about him a lot this season, but God bless you, Harry Kane. Huge summer ahead for that gentleman. Come to Everton, Harry Kane.
That won't happen. Yeah, a massive diamond in a pile of turd.
Who, Everton or Harry Kane?
No, I'm saying just where he is at Tottenham. I don't know what's worse than a pile of turd to describe Everton, but I'm saying within the Tottenham team, in those performances, Harry Kane has been a diamond there. That would be
in that
be
moment.
Tough move.
A West Ham fan at Buffalo Hammers sent me a beautiful tweet. He said, when I was a boy, it was a Mr. Rogers quote. When I was a boy and I'd see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. And God, I realised in that moment, I needed helpers. I needed helpers so badly. And then Anthony Gordon scored for Newcastle in that very moment. I was like, that's not helping, you little bastard. That's not helping. Everton now tried to make a fist of it. We huffed. We tried Onana, Decore, just trying to get up there to help little poor tiny Demare, that tiny dancer. Bournemouth, so much snide. They were relegated at Everton 3 seasons ago. Bit of memory. Even though, to be candid, we actually lost that game, Bournemouth. Why were you hating on us? We lost, but you were relegated anyway. But they had a bit of edge, bit of elbow, bit of a late foot. Stunning moment at which Onana set up a charging Gay 5 years since he last scored. And the goalkeeper, nothing to play for, made an intense save. And at the very second, Leicester City scored their opener. Harvey Bloody Barnes. Hello, darkness, my old friend. And this, Davo, is this not the signature of Survival Sunday, Relegation Sunday, Championship Sunday, whatever you want to call it, when a game is going on that you're watching but is seismically impacted by a moment from another stadium, and suddenly the whole ground
filters through. Word filters through. And
that a death has occurred, right?
And like lots of transistor radios and MIB pod radios all over the place. And yeah, it was interesting.
I mean, Davo, you see a stadium just so full of energy, and suddenly that energy at Goodison just bled out. I mean, silence. It was like a dark cloud rolling in on a summer's day. Players, you can tell the news hits them. They just suddenly start to crumble a moment emotionally. West Ham were playing in an absolute stroll. What a goal Leicester scored. That class of Barnes too, Davo.
Yeah, Leicester was superb today, actually. Throughout. Leicester was superb throughout. I mean, you're making Bournemouth sound like Bayern Munich. I thought that...
They felt like at times they felt like Brazil 1970.
That's just your... I say bias. I mean that just we all are. Is you look at them
this
as being
objective.
The most terrifying, enemy that you can possibly face. So of course they become that way. But Leicester were. I was watching Leicester, thinking the whole game, how on earth this group of individuals in this position right now, not even to discuss, you mentioned Maddison, you mentioned Barnes, but you look at Tielemans, you look at just these players like up and down that club who are so
Welcome to Everton, lads.
It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, forget you actually need something. What's it called?
Money.
Yes,
money.
That's the stuff. That's the stuff. We don't need any of that. We have spirit and we have a bit of. We have vibes. Do they not take vibes?
They don't take vibes.
I can probably tell some of these
vibes on Venmo. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm sure some of those players I could persuade them it's a cryptocurrency like that ape thing. It's vibes. I will pay you in vibes. We had to score a goal with our vibes, Davo. We had to do it. We had no striker. Goodison Park, just a pit of nerves, of anxiety, of prayer. Felt like we've been kidney punched. And Asimov wrote once, the great science fiction writer, who once wrote, life is pleasant, death is peaceful. It's the transition that is troublesome. And that's what it felt like. It felt like we were dying and could do nothing to stop it. What?
I was doing a little bit of, I was watching the lines, Rog, because I wanted to put a bit of money on Everton, but I wanted to wait for the 60th minute because I was literally just watching the line go up. The odds get longer and longer and longer as the half went on, and of course they managed to do it before I put my money on the win. But yeah, it was those three players who were great throughout the game. I'd say for you, Iwobi, Onana, running, as I think Peter Drury described at one point, long-leggedly, which I love that adjective. That was beautiful.
Dookie.
And Decore. Those three were enormous.
Immense.
In this game today.
Immense. But by the way, we need to acknowledge, if you're not watching much at Everton, shots are hard for us. Goals almost impossible. And I felt weak at halftime. I felt like something I love was crumbling in my fingers, totally powerless to stop it. It was just, I found myself Googling, how much do West Ham tramp stamps cost? If that's what it takes, I would have got one. If West Ham had done the job for us, I would have got myself a West Ham just some irons.
Bubbles.
Some irons. Yeah,
Bubbles.
irons and bubbles. But, Damari Gray missed another open chance. By the way, if DCL was playing, beautiful DCL, this would not have even been close. Bournemouth wasting time at every opportunity, you cruel, sadistic ballot. By the way, I hope the Vegas Golden Knights get crapped on in the Stanley Cup. I'm not like that normally, but God, what Bournemouth did today, yellow card after yellow for their snide. And we knew this day was always going to come down to moments. And it came in the 57th minute, the moment. Just Onana, beautiful Onana, knocked the ball down. Decore swept upon it. A man who probably is in the top 10 of human beings who play in the Premier League who can just boot that ball into Rosie. I mean, he can smack that ball into Rosie hilariously, comically, like the best of them. But my God, sometimes, by accident, he just catches him.
If he gets that opportunity 10 times, how many times does he score it?
You've got to give me, to make this useful, you've got to give me 100 times.
Okay. If he gets it 100 times, how many times does he score it?
3. 3.
3.
It's 3. But my God, those 3... I would watch those 100. I would shag flies. Is that the phrase in America? Fly balls, shag fly balls for just. I would go and get.
I thought you were going in a different direction.
If there was just either way, however you want to take that, Decore. However you want to take that, Mr. Decore.
Okay, got it.
Because sometimes when the sun's shining bright and the light is just bouncing off the field in a certain way, and the cosmic force are just perfect, and that ball just sits up. I mean, anyone that's played football knows that feeling when you just catch one madly, truly, deeply, and it just, you know that it's gone in the second that you connect. And sometimes the courage just smites that ball biblically, and he just stepped up to the ball. If you look at it and you lip read, he screams, "What do we say to the God of death?" I've got to be honest, Davo. In that moment, that feeling of just lightheaded giddiness. Do you know what song came to mind? I don't know if you'll remember this one. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, tell me.
I've been to Georgia and California, anywhere I could run. I took the hand of a preacher man and we made love in the sun. Google that song. I've been to paradise, but I've never been to me. And I just, in my head, I sort of all the outlandish experiences that humans can have in their life, including making sweet love to a preacher man, which I've never done. Not that I wouldn't, but I just have never done it.
Fly.
Shag a fly. I think there's nothing I could do in my life, Michael Davis, that could compare to that giddy feeling of exhilaration, Davo. I don't know why, but I truly finally understood that beautiful song by, I think Charlene, was she the singer?
I think it's a bit of a one-hit wonder. Rog, born June
like
1st,
like Decore from 35 yards.
Charlene, wherever you are today. It was an amazing moment. It was an amazing goal. Like one of those moments, the goalkeeper didn't even move, rooted to the spot, unsighted. It was smashed. It had that great replay where the ball just hit the camera in the back of the net and the camera went all wonky. It was, there is no free will, as you know, Rog. It was written. It was written that this was going to happen. It was a lifetime of false choices that he believes he's making. He's not making those choices. This was all written. That opportunity was going to present himself in the 57th minute of this game, and he was going to smite that ball. He was going to smite that ball into the back of the net, and there it was.
Peter Drury roared, "The bricks and mortar of this football museum are quaking." A crucial goal, as Leicester immediately went 2-0 up within seconds without face. And
mortar, they'd bite your arm off for some mortar up there. It's mainly just bricks.
God, bite your arm off for a couple of bricks. But there was a bit of a weird one because they're 2-0 up, but they were currently going down. And West Ham fans were singing to them, "Say hello to Millwall, say hello to Millwall." Bournemouth, though, full of spite, Solanke flipping Pickford over with a real snide move on the line. Really a sign of this Bournemouth mentality. They had nothing to play for. They had 40,000 people in that stadium whose whole lives revolved around Everton Football Club, and they just wanted to piss them off. They were going for... I mean, is that the mentality, David? They just wanted to piss off Scousers.
Well, no, but you'd say, I actually think Bournemouth were disappointing because I don't think they came there.
I think they were bloody good.
I didn't think they played enough football. Yeah, I've watched Bournemouth play quite a lot this season. I'm amazed at how many, offensive opportunities they create. They didn't create a whole amount in this game, and then they just brought on, Kiefer Moore to just lump it up to him to try and get his head on the ball. And I don't think they ever matched the energy of that amazing trio in midfield for your boys. So, yeah, I mean, but a professional shouldn't just go and go
West
up
Ham
there and just give up.
West Ham were...
Well, no, they came back in. They got another. West Ham, got back into that game. They had the Leicester played brilliantly. Leicester really played brilliantly. I don't think Bournemouth gave a lot, but that doesn't matter. The atmosphere at Everton, at Goodison, is a very, very tough place to go and play football. It's a godsend that this is where you're getting to go and play this final game.
At this point, by the way, Everton was shattered, knackered, exhausted, sagging, broken. Signs are all there. Just an agony. Bournemouth starting to fling on attacking pieces. The fear so real. Every time Everton cleared the ball from the Kenny Loggins danger zone, I cheered like a little child cheering a goal. I felt, honestly, you said Bournemouth weren't very good. I felt like in the second half we were playing Brazil 1970. Just that sense of agony, sense of inevitability, of stretched, dark, buckling, 10 minutes of injury time, a decade, I tell you, a decade actually lasts shorter. The levels of anxiety, as Graham Lasso and Lee Dixon kept noodling on the possibility of Bournemouth having their first penalty of the season, I was like, do not speak that dark magic into existence. There was a flashing drive from Vina. Pickford just, oh, God, strong wrist. God, I love you. Jordan Pickford, you beautiful club legend. Everton just icing the puck at this point to try and hold on. 96th minute, Leicester result became final. 380 games in this entire Premier League season. And this at Everton at the Goodison was the last and final one. Leeds had already lost at home to Tottenham. Leeds were down. One place left over the moon door of relegation. It was us, there was Leicester, and there was death, and the fear was real. What I kept thinking of, Davo, as the seconds tick by. I mean, I've got to tell you this.
What?
I seen about my connection to my dad.
Oh, yeah, I knew we were going to cover this. And I was thinking about exactly the same thing for you, Rog.
I was speaking to my mate Jamie, my lifelong blue. I used to go to the game with, whose father is a wonderful man, is no longer with us. He said, I'm glad my dad's dead, so he doesn't have to see this, is what he said to me. But I thought about my dad. I thought about my memories. Thought about my own formative memories as a kid, the ones that I've experienced now with all four of my own kids who loved this club. My first ever game, April 1st, 1977, beat Charlie George's Derby County. I was 6. Goodison Park was packed. It was freezing. I couldn't see a thing. All these big men around me. So this stranger next to me just saw I couldn't see, and he just took off this huge, big sheepskin coat, folded it up, and put it under me so I could sit on it like a booster seat. And he just shouted in my ear. He goes, "We're all one big family here, the Goodison." And at halftime, my dad handed me a flask of whiskey and told me to have a slug. It just 6 years old I was, and it just tasted of warmth and happiness. I've loved Scotch to this day. And then I thought about the last game I took my dad to, 2019, Everton 4, Manchester United 0. Took all my 4 kids with him. My daughter Zion's first game. And we destroyed Manchester United that day. And every goal, my dad just threw himself around the ground onto, like a kid. Like he was the biggest kid of all. And that's football. That's what it empowers. Those feelings, those connections across generations, that cycle of life crap, Davo. And that's what I thought of. I thought Bournemouth were going to score, were going to do us, foot on our throat. And all of that, Davo, was just going to, like a needle falling off a record, just be shattered.
But it didn't happen. It was not written today. Everton win another one. They win another 17th place. They win another championship Sunday. These are the trophies, Rog. This is why you play football. Survival is winning.
I've got a lot of very funny texts and tweets from people being like, Everton celebrate 17th place like other normal teams celebrate trophies. Are we Are we sports? Are we footballs or even the sports world's just most confident edges, David?
Yeah, I mean, it's an odd thing, and yet, look, we toasted Luton Town at the beginning of this. What did Luton Town celebrate? What was that amazing moment? What is that amazing outpouring after the penalty shootout win? It was the fact that they made it into the Premier League. At the end of this game, at the end of Championship Sunday, Everton made it into the Premier League. These are enormous wins. It's actually even more enormous because had they not made it into the Premier League, they could. Who knows what could have happened to Everton? Who still knows what's going to happen to Everton?
Yes, I mean this is the point. I mean, you could tell by the way the pitch invasion, the sense of indignation,
darkness.
Yeah. But yes, we'd survived. The bitterness, though, the anger, the protest, this all felt so different to the joy and relief of beating Crystal Palace with 2 games to go last season, saving our skin. To repeat it, this is the reality of where we are. There's 2 realities in the moment, and then we can talk about what now, big picture. But in the moment, to save our skin last season, I was on stage with Frank Lampard, with Anthony Gordon in DC. We're like, we won't do it again. No, we've learned our lessons, lads. We won't do it again. To do it again, the same mistakes, the same financial nightmare, the mocking of the fans by the board. I said last year that it was Churchill who said the greatest feeling in life is to be shot at without result. This season, we dodged the bullet. This season, we chased after the bullet and we tried to throw our body in front of it again. That's what we've done. That's the idiocy of our current reality, where things are still deeply, deeply toxic despite the safety, because the board is still the board, the financial meltdown is still a financial meltdown, the threat of the broken balance sheet, the takeover, hovering, Premier League deducting points, which, by the way, they should do if we did what we are said to have done with dodgy financial dealing. So much is up for grabs. Will Sean Dyche stay? 8th permanent manager in 7 years. There's investment firm MSP Sports Capital, who Everton have signed an agreement for takeover. From what I hear, same as you, I think, Dave, every investor who's gone near Everton has had Moshiri and the board over a barrel. I mean, really, these are not going to be on great terms for Everton. This is not a saviour. I mean, that's what you've heard, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
there's not a saviour coming in. This is a desperate deal, right?
And also because the debt situation is just very, very difficult. And then also a lot of the fan anger is also quite difficult. And that fan anger, you saw it, yes, with the protest that happened at the final whistle, but also the other feeling with many people in the crowd. It's like, get off the field. This is not the time to protest, not the time to do it. This has gone on too long, Roger. It's been toxic. It's been unresolved for too long. And so this is scary to investors, and even I think would say, and, hold up my hand. I think Chelsea and what's happened with Todd Boehly has cast a microscope on how bad it can be if you get it wrong, even at a club like Chelsea, which has got piles of opportunity and piles of cash, is in a much better financial position. But these are dangerous investments, really, really dangerous investments.
Which players will stay, which will leave? Yerry Mina's gone. Jordan Pickford, will he stay? Club legend status secured. Onana, thank you for staying this season when you could have gone. Probably too good for us. We are a shell of a squad with no money to bolster. Financial fair play. Just to be clear, we are as bad as Manchester City, but we don't do the winning thing. We have massive losses, 460 million. We are under serious investigation. Premier League have been advised to speed up judgment. I'd like to suggest they do make judgment quickly, and they make Everton's and Manchester City's punishments exactly the same. I really do. Exactly the same. I think you should strip us all of our titles, right? Strip them all.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. I was waiting for the angle. Yeah, all the Premier League titles should be taken away from both teams.
It will hurt. Yes, it will hurt. It will be humiliating. Everything will have an asterisk by it forever.
Yeah.
But I think that's the right thing to do. By the way, the club also owes a huge amount to rights and media. We are heavily in debt. If we had gone down, our own accountant said our future was in significant doubt. There is a lot of darkness to come for many reasons, but I want to end on a note of possibility and hope. I think you can love the art and hate the artist. That's kind of what I'm trying to work out, if that's possible. But I've learned this week, David, 2 quick quotes. Murakami, I've been reading him a lot this week, and he wrote in Firefly, death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it. And I say that to Leeds fans and Leicester fans too. But there's a line from a Winnie the Pooh movie, and I'm very serious when I say this is probably the most devastating thing I've heard of all week. And we are going to talk about Leeds and Leicester now. Of how lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. That was how I approached today, ultimately, David. Ready for darkness, trying to tell myself we are lucky to have this to wank around with.
Yeah, grief is the price we pay for love. This is very, very, very true. Yeah, so Leicester and Leeds. I don't know what order you want to take this.
Let's talk about them. By the way, we feel for the fans. We really do. Leeds first, then Leicester. Why don't we do that? Football's hard and unromantic, and you go beneath the waterline, and it just moves on. Leeds, Willie Gnonto passed his driving test this week, so it's not exactly been a nothing of a season. But an agony. I think that the passion, that fan base, so close to take over by the San Francisco 49ers, who I believe will still take over, but with less of a bang. The club and their chaos, a reflection of the panic of their current owner, Andrea Radrizzani, who's been running the club really with an eye on the economics of his exit rather than, to make it actually play coherently. It's a darkness for the club. It's a darkness for the great city, the fan base. They were a second straight year of agony for them too. Like us, most of the Leeds fans I spoke to, numbed by the trauma. But the trauma was there, and it was there in human form, and it had a name, Sam Allardyce. God, watching him come in and bring his big bag of false hope was really quite something, right?
Yeah, and yet this isn't. Sam Allardyce didn't save them as he stated that he would. He came in very late. It's not all his fault. It's not all
1 point from those last four. Amazing.
Yeah, but it's not even either of his predecessors' fault. This is a club that, as you well understand, also has problems, has, not issues on the size of Leicester, but it has some major issues between ownership. And yes, San Francisco 49ers, team look like they're going to come in and make that acquisition. But that's not an easy deal. They've been working on this for months and months and months and months trying to get it right. It's a complicated situation at this club. Going to be more complicated with them going down.
Well, they had no terms about what happens in this eventuality. They now have to negotiate. But watching Sam Allardyce at Leeds was like watching Tony Soprano take over Ramsey Sports and Outdoors and just use it to commit bankruptcy fraud. Once poor Davey Scatino got over his head with the gambling problems. But what now for the Americans? Not great. Tyler will have a lot of suitors, a lot of decisions to make. Tyler Adams is going to be linked to some very big clubs over the next few months. I've got a pod on Tuesday morning with Fabrizio Romano. He's top of my list to talk about. I talked about Weston and Brendan on Friday. Weston will be okay, though he's not exactly bolstered his reputation, playing mostly out of position on a club in free fall, in which he never really looked confident, comfortable or sure. But Brendan, Dave, can you believe it's only 282 days since he looked into a microphone and said, our goal is to make the world know Americans can play football too, after they smashed Chelsea. And we were just all in on the major leagues, lead soccer and the Leeds United States of America. Jesse Marsh was manager. Brendan scored. How we danced, Davo. And I say our joy feels like it's stuck like ashes in our mouth now. Just the better days ahead for all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Aronson, I think, is a player who could move, but the wages are attractive to another club. But Leeds may very well want to keep him. He's a player who, by all accounts, is wonderful to have around the squad and wonderful to have. Not that Tyler and Weston aren't, but Brendan is just seems to be, exemplary in terms of the way that he is felt about by his teammates and by his managers and coaches. So I think they'd like to keep him. And I don't think it would be a bad thing for Brendan Aronson to go through.
It'd be great. His body is knackered. His mind is knackered. He's so young. The physicality of the Premier League, man. We've seen it take out bigger players in their first year. And God bless to a break, to some weight room, to go in again. But Leicester 2, West Ham 1. Thanks for nothing, David Moyes. 11 years at Everton and you do us like that. Rumour has him staying at West Ham. Next season, after all, I love that, man. I do. Leicester, David, go down. This is incredible. A mere 7 years after the most sensational title win of all, and just 2 years after that FA Cup win that we talked about them as a model club. Poor recruitment, key components like Schmeichel letting go, aging Vardy's not been able to defend at all. That'll do you in. So many players out of contract at the end of the season, so they didn't exactly care whether their wages were going to be lowered because if they went down, so that the commitment wasn't there. Keeping the Brodge long after his smooth jazz stylings have been tuned out. That's life and that is football. But somewhere, someplace, David, Brodge is saying to himself, I gave my life for Leicester City right now.
Yeah, you look at what Lopetegui got out of Wolves, and then you look at what Brendan Rodgers got out of Leicester, and it's kind of like, it is pretty stark, the difference. And Leicester probably the best equipped of any of these teams to go down. Their owner, chairman, paid off all of their debt, about 300 million. I don't know if it's pounds or dollars, but a lot of debt he paid off. So they're in a pretty decent position to survive. Not that it's great for them. I think if you'd have said to any Leicester fan, okay, here's the deal, you're gonna win the Premier League, but at some point in the next 10 years, you're also gonna go down, like any Leicester fan would have bitten your arm off for it. They'd rather not have gone down, but I think that they'll bite your arm off. I think they'll probably be pretty well equipped to bounce back up.
So better days ahead for all. I just want to curl in a ball in a dark room right now, but we've got to tie up some other loose ends on the season, Dave. One other game that did mean something, Aston Villa 2. Brighton 1. Aston Villa, Unai Emery's Aston Villa finished 7th, headed to the Europa Conference League. Just incredible. They were 15th when he took over Unai in October. Now they're back, David. Just an incredible transformation, right?
Yeah, and so many brilliant players. It's been a tough weekend in the Midlands with Coventry losing in that championship playoff to Luton, and obviously Leicester going down. But really good news for Aston Villa. And that's stealth, one of the great stories of the season, the performance of Aston Villa since Unai Emery replaced Steven Gerrard.
Jack, by the way, big love to Brighton fans, Villa fans too. You both got great leaders, but man, Roberto De Zerbi, my manager of the season, I interviewed him last week. It's on YouTube. He was intense. He was focused, deadly serious, driven. It's on our YouTube page, the interview, but I asked him what he thought about when he hugged his coaching staff when they secured European place for the first time in Brighton's 123-year history. And he said in that moment, every single failure he'd ever had in his career flashed through his mind. Like, he gave me the list: third tier Italian side, Foggia, just falling apart in the promotion playoffs against Pisa. Just a reminder, every glory in your life is paved by a road of lessons learned the hard way through failure. I've got a feeling that the way Pep has been praising De Zerbi is it's like De Zerbi could well be the next City manager. We dropped a pod special yesterday. If you want to hear that with Unai as well, is on that pod. And I think, is it Ten Hag is the third person on that podcast? Give it a listen. Right after that, he's a magic man. Talking about Ten Hag, Manchester United 2, Fulham 1, FA Cup coming next weekend. Ten Hag resting his backline key players on the bench. And I admire Eric Ten Hag so bloody much. Finally this week, got over the Champions League qualification line. A massive accomplishment that's certainly not been a given in the kind of Ole and Rangnick era. Crucial in terms of the caliber of players the club can bring in and the money amidst the chaos of this takeover. I did love Bruno insisting that United's season, even if they win 2 cups domestically, won't be a success because they want more than just that. Davo, are United going to remain a club in flux, or do you see them as becoming a true title challenger next season?
I mean, look, I think that there is so much talk this season about, sort of next year Arsenal are going to come back and they're going to really, this is everything they've learned from finishing second this year, how much stronger they're going to be next year. But I look at Man United and look at them as a real, really when I see a team and a squad and a manager who could, other than Liverpool, of course, Jurgen Klopp has been there before, could challenge Manchester City. I look at Man United, and they're the team I would say, on a good side. There are teams that have surprised me negatively, mostly my own team, Chelsea Football Club, but they're a team that has surprised me this season of how quickly they've gone about the rebuild and how good they've looked at times and how bright their future looks is Man United. Man United fans are buzzing about this squad and about this team and about this manager. He's done what has been impossible for so many managers previously, and good managers. It's not like they've had scrubs in there. They've had their choice of some of the biggest managers in the world, and he's come in and he looks like the man for the job and for that club. And I think that third place finish, they're going to be better next season, Rog.
Talking about they may be better next season. Chelsea won. Newcastle won. Old Newgard versus new Newgard. Piff-powered Saudi tune. Crucial Champions League place. Already locked up in full first Eddie Howe season. And as dire as their ownership may be, and it's very dire, I admire what Eddie Howe has done on the field. Just those naive attacking days of buccaneering football at Bournemouth, now robust defensively, just pragmatic football. I think his sabbatical, he spent some time with Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid, and he's proof really that everyone can change. But David, for your mob, shambles, a shame of a season, ends with the club in the bottom half of the Premier League, despite spending $743 million on new signings. Different reasons starting to come out as to why they did that. None of them very sage. Pochettino, set to be announced this week, reportedly signed his contract today, expected to start the job next week. New announcement imminent. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. But Chelsea's upheaval, Tom Glick out as the club's president of business. I wonder if they spelled it with Biznes or how, but after only 10 months, oh my God, he did not double revenues, clearly, David. But news also, Todd Boehly has announced he's going to halve his time on the club, which means that it will take him twice as long to destroy the thing you love at that pace. But we got a great raven from GFOP Tim Mason, who said, I've figured out how Todd Boehly will intend to double Chelsea's revenue. I think he's just heard about the world's most lucrative match, the Championship playoff, and he wants his way into it. I'd also love the tweet from Das Micho. Feel for Frank Lampard. Absolutely monumental challenge, trying to get two clubs relegated in one season, but arrived too late at Chelsea. How do you feel about it, David?
I mean, look, I think it will get better at Chelsea. They have too many assets, too big a catchment area. And, Clear Lake, when you look at the financials of some of the companies who are looking to take over Premier League sides, Clear Lake, even though this hasn't gone well for them, they have a bunch of cash and a bunch of money and a bunch of cash not doing anything else. So I think probably, these are Todd Boehly stepping back and doing less, is a good thing. That's a net positive. I think the fact that he's realized, wow, this is hard, and maybe I don't want to be, the butt of almost every joke on Men in Blazers. Not that I'm saying that's a big drive for him, but that sort of thing.
By the way,
within the
I
British
think he
tabloids.
listens.
It's a
welcome, Todd.
That's a nice thing. And yes, they splooged an insane amount of cash, but I think what we're going to find next season is some of that cash they splooged will end up paying off. Will end up being pretty decent. It was sad for me. Look, just you say what I experienced today. This was arguably one of Chelsea's best performances of the season today, and watching a player like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who grew up, joined that club, I think maybe 10 or 11 years old, local South London boy for me. I've followed him his entire career, watching him walk off and, a very emotional farewell to the players. He'll go to pastures new next year. There's just going to be a clear out, a monumental clear out at discount rates. This is like, it's going to be Amazon Prime Day every single day for Chelsea for the next few weeks. Christian, came on late, missed a great chance, but I don't think we'll see him in a Chelsea shirt. I don't think we'll see him in a Chelsea shirt again. Madueke looked fantastic. Enzo, we'll see, how he turns out. I think that's going to be an important player for them going forward if they're going to be a good team. But yeah, it's going to have to be a very new season. Pochettino, the right man for the job, but let's see if Todd Boehly really does step back. And let's have them bring in a great head of business, managing director. Somebody's got to come in and run those transfers.
I think Burley's got his eye on cousin Greg. from Succession. He's big, he's popular, he seems to
Yeah.
know his way around a real business.
Yeah.
God, just Christian Pulisic, can we just say, as you say, probably played for his last time in a Chelsea shirt, 4 seasons, 146 games, 26 goals, 4 managers. The word delirious highs. Youngest American of all time to score in the Champions League semi-finals. Also the oldest American to ever score in the Champions League semi-finals, because he's the only one that's ever done it. But there were lows, there were injuries, there was awarenesses. He missed
A lot of awarenesses.
Yeah, 55 Chelsea games he missed. I won't forget, Davo, that dizzying day when he scored a hat-trick against Burnley. I think it was a natural hat-trick too. I was in North Carolina with J-Dubs for the NWSL final, and we looked at it from the bar in the hotel. It was in the morning, and it was just felt like everything felt possible. And I won't forget the joy and pride with which he donned the US jersey in his moment of Champions League victory. I think he could definitely do. I'm surprised he didn't leave last summer. Still don't quite understand why he didn't leave last summer. He could definitely do with a fresh start. He's still only 24. I have no doubt there is still much more to come.
Yeah, fantastic player in a US jersey. Had occasional flashes of brilliance in a Chelsea jersey. And I think he was, to some extent, the size of that transfer and the size of those wages made it very difficult for him to leave, because there weren't great opportunities for him to go and play and to make that same amount of money. We'll see what happens in this offseason. We'll see where he lands, but wish him well. And by the way, it would not be a tragedy for me personally to see him playing under Mauricio Pochettino. I think he's a good player for that manager, particularly if a number of these other Chelsea players clear out.
And finally, Brentford 1, Manchester City 0. Still hope, Arsenal fans. I jest. And bye-bye, Xhaka, in the most wonderful way. I'm just sorry, Xhaka, by the way. Arsenal magnificent today. Didn't go off in the way he should have done, like a Viking funeral with a hat-trick, and an own goal and a red card. But you can't have it all. But Godspeed, Brentford. Best top flight finish in 85 years. Magic Bees. City, Erling Haaland on the bench, didn't come on. But we do need to acknowledge and cannot normalise Erling Haaland's season, scoring 36 goals, sweeping all the Player of the Year awards. Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year, won our wrestling belt d'Or. Only 3 young players have ever won the Premier League Player of the Season and a young player in the same time. Ronaldo, Gareth Bale, and now Erling Haaland. And by the way, Ronaldo and Bale, 0 wrestling belts. But Haaland, David, between the trophies, the awards, the heads of his fallen enemies, just overflowing with honours. In earlier centuries, I do believe Norse legends would have been written about this man, a bit like Ragnar Lodbrok, but even better. He would, maybe in decades to come, there'll be a History Channel documentary about Erling Haaland too, Davo. And we're going to see his difficult second season album now. But it has been magnificent. We do need to acknowledge Manchester City have won the Premier League, could make it a double next weekend if they beat United in the FA Cup, and a treble in a fortnight if they add the Champions League. On the field, they are magnificent.
In a league of stars, and a league where we have seen just outstanding stars come in and play so well from the continent, where we have seen some incredible clubs go through Premier League seasons and dominate against other really good clubs. I'm not sure we've ever seen anything that approaches Erling Haaland or Manchester City Football Club. I know that there are a lot of potential asterisks to put on Manchester City, the financial fair play violations hanging over their head, just the very nature of their nation state ownership, etc., etc., etc. But the football they have played under Pep Guardiola this year, and we always talk about the pressure that Arsenal were under, Manchester City were under considerable pressure again and again and again in competition after competition after competition. The kind of football they played, the way that Haaland succeeded in his first year, playing a position in a league. We've seen the difference. We've seen so many players come in from Germany who've been dominant in Germany, and they failed to go and make it in the Premier League. This was just extraordinary what we saw from Haaland. And I think Haaland himself, if given that credit, would immediately turn it over to his outstanding teammates and this outstanding manager, this outstanding team. I think it's a little bit too early to completely pay off and honour Manchester City because, as you said, they've got a potential double next weekend. They've got a potential treble, a treble we've not seen in 20 years, the weekend after. But I think we're witnessing one of the greatest teams in the history of English football, maybe one of the greatest teams in the history of world football, and just the beauty of they play. They've converted me. I mean, I am just all in on how good this football team are, and not just all good. I've always known how good they are. I'm all in on just the beauty of the football they play. I just kiss it. I think it's just outstanding and gorgeous. But I think they deserve a lot of credit, and we're right to focus, and especially with your personal connection, we're so right to focus on Championship Sunday, on the foot of the table and the relegation, the battle. But the reason that this whole league has weight, the reason that there is air in this balloon is ultimately because somebody goes out and wins it, and that is Manchester City.
And talking about winning it, I want to close with a toast to Dortmund. I want to raise this shot of Jägermeister, this bolt of human emotion in a shot glass to all Dortmund fans. I feel for you so very deeply. No Erling Haaland, and yet you come so close to glory. For the first time in 11 years, you could touch it, you could taste it, you marched to the game, you filled that delirious stadium with noise and hope and dreams, only to flail at the last, despite the fleeting hope provided by Gio Reyna, was a true catalyst when he came on. Dortmund, beautiful Dortmund, fell impotently, shocked, dropped at home to nothing to play for Mainz, handing Bayern Munich, that footballing Augustus Gloop, who, though weakened and in chaos, won their 11th straight Bundesliga title. Under the crucible of pressure, your players wilted. The agony of this self-destruction will last a long, long time. But just know, it could always be worse. You could support Everton. And in that way, we learn there are no heroes in life, Davo. The monsters always win.
Before we go, Roger, a quick reminder about everything we've got happening at Men in Blazers this week. Powered by Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. The Season 9 finale of the Men in Blazers show. Our Men in Blazers American Football Award show is live now on Peacock. It's not to be
amazing.
missed, despite the fact you gave a spoiler to one of the winners during the Manchester City match recap. It will also be available
He's
as
in
a
it himself, by the way. He's in
special
it himself with our wrestling belt. It's amazing.
tomorrow right here on this very pod feed. And you're back Tuesday morning with a special European Nights with Rory Smith presented by Paramount Plus, during which you'll preview the Europa League final. You can follow us on Twitter at Men in Blazers, at Embassy Davies, at Roger Bennett, on Instagram at Men in Blazers, at Embassy Davies, on Facebook with the Men in Blazers, on Twitch, twitch.tv/Men in Blazers. We're on YouTube. You can see a video version of our podcast, including this podcast, which we will release in full. And also our TikTok. Look for it at Men in Blazers. You can always email us at meninblazers@gmail.com. Venderpunk Rog.
Oh, War Pig.
Was that a Rabona?
I like snacks.
Balls win, balls win.
Take that, Gloria.
Balls lose.
To Tweed.
Abrigado, rock on, mate.
Kung Fu Fight in America. Love you, Davo.
I love you, Rog.
I love you, Ducore, you gorgeous human being. But all listeners know this. One day, we're all gonna die. Subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos and courage.